Test section 16019, about, well, we're close to milepost 42. That's just up about 500 feet beyond the end of the test section. So the beginning, this point here that I'm showing, is around milepost 41.8 on Interstate 65 north of Mobile, Alabama. To the south of us there is a crossover, an exit and interchange there between I-65 and a county road, which may serve as a good reference point, or at least a place to begin looking on this. This section actually begins about a mile north of a creek, a bridge over a creek, and so that's the other thing. I can't recall the name of the creek right offhand. I don't have the plans handy right now. Walking on up the test section, you'll notice that we haven't marked all the way across the lanes. The Alabama Highway Department personnel, Stan Armstrong, will come back and do that at a later date using the traffic system. What we did was to go ahead and paint the crosses, and we extended the tick out into the pavement a bit further than we did on the interim station marks. The main type of thing that we see in here is we see some rutting of a minor depth. It appears to be less than half an inch. We also see some of the scarring of the friction course, as we've seen on a number of other test sections in this part of the country, due to vehicles rolling on their rims after blowing out a tire. Scarring doesn't appear to be such that it would affect the status of this as far as its use as a GPS test section is concerned. I have seen or noticed no cracking of any sort that has made it up through the porous friction course here. As I mentioned, the only type of structural distress that I have noted in walking up and down this test section has been some rutting. We don't have any means of measuring that with us right now. It appears to be less than half an inch, possibly approaching that amount. The roadway, most of the scarring that we see here is in the outside wheel path. There's very little of it, if any, in the inside wheel path, as opposed to some that we've seen in other states before. See Station 4 up ahead, and we see one other thing which we may identify here. See just over to the left, and then on up ahead, just beyond the tick mark, you can see where it appears to have been a little bit flushed. A bit oilier of a mix may have been used here on the friction course than was probably called for. It indicates, though, on the condition survey form, however, not to show any bleeding unless it affects skid resistance. And to look at this little dark spot right here, it doesn't appear that would, because the aggregate shows through quite fine with no problem. Therefore, I will not be indicating any bleeding on the distress survey forms. In talking with the Alabama Highway Department personnel, it seems quite unlikely that we'll be able to obtain any condition information prior to overlay on this particular section or any of the other overlay sections that we have here. The edge beyond the end of the test section, you can see the mark down there, which is where the stripe across the lane will go 250 feet beyond the end of the test section. The other thing I'm trying to show here is milepost 42, which I alluded to before. It's approximately 500 feet beyond the end of the test section, placing the beginning of it therefore at milepost 41.8. That's what I'm showing on the survey form. Backing off of it now to give a broader perspective. Test hole just beyond the end of the test section, or the borehole, I should say. And I've got a handful here of some of the soil aggregate material which I was speaking of before, which has the oyster shell in it. And I just reached in and grabbed a handful of it, and you can see there is some aggregate mixed in, but there's also some shell, as I talked about before, mixed into a predominantly sandy material. It is not a major constituent of this mix, and since it is considered as a sub-base, I personally don't feel that it does any harm to include this particular section in the GPS study.